lies will be exposed.
All right. Hey, everyone. I know it's a pre-recording. Well, what's going on here? Well, today, if you're watching this, it is September 1st. That means it's Labor Day. And for those who truly do respect Labor Day, I hope all of you are well and with loved ones and at least enjoying some time of peace. Now, why is this recording happening? Well, first of all of you who make Hardlands Media happen do deserve a morning show. Even if it's not a long morning show, at least you guys do deserve a true morning show. So this is going to be just a short update in regards to what's happening in Chicago. There are going to be a couple of protests taking place in the Windy City, be it in downtown, in front of Trump Tower, or wherever, because it is in response to Trump's promise, threat, decree that he is going to send in the National Guard, ICE, and other federal agents, and who knows what other kind of federal forces he'll be sending in regards to deal with the crime rate in Chicago. Now, my true opinion is this: President Trump, if you want to deal with the true corruption in Chicago, go to City Hall. All right, that's where the heart of the corruption is at. But nonetheless, I think it's important for you guys to know this. So that means sometime later today, there will be a live stream. Hopefully, I'll be able to get a clear signal of the protests wherever it will be taking place, be it at Trump Tower or in the downtown Chicagoland area, to at least get a better idea of what's going on and, just at least inform you guys of what's happening on the ground here. So I will try and be safe, and I'll keep my head on a swivel and drink water. And as for everybody else, I do encourage all of you to be safe. So see, a promise is a promise. You're still going to get a morning show because you deserve it. So what exactly is going on here? Well, first of all, let's go ahead and address the main situation on the ground. And that is, of course, Donald Trump with his plan on bringing in the National Guard. So let me go ahead and at least share this video with all of you lovely, beautiful people. And let's do this.
Crime. Chicago and state leaders are calling the plan unconstitutional and an abuse of federal power. Governor Pritzker has already said he will fight any deployment in court. Meantime, Mayor Johnson is talking up a 30% drop in homicides and a nearly 40% decline in shooting victims this year, saying Chicago is making progress on its own. Today, faith leaders gathered on Federal Plaza to say Chicago's not a war zone.
And while he threatens to deploy soldiers into our neighborhoods, his administration has stripped away $477 million in funding resources critical to stopping infectious disease, treating mental health, and addressing substance abuse, which is the root cause of violence in our land.
City labor unions organize a protest against Trump's threats to send federal agents. It's coming Monday. Next on the news at 5, a look at what the president can legally do.
Well, here's let's go ahead and at least address this. So first of all, on the show, if you did check it out, Mayor Brandon Johnson signed an executive order to resist a potential Trump crackdown. Now, I don't know what that's going to look like. I don't see the Chicago Police Department pulling over a convoy of 6 to 8 Humvees and saying, do you have a ticket? Do you have registration for this military-grade vehicle? But Mayor Brandon Johnson has signed an order detailing how the city will resist a potential immigration crackdown threatened by the Trump administration. I don't see how he's going to fully execute this plan when in February of this year of 2025, ICE, along with Dr. Phil, were detaining migrants, and this administration, Mayor Brandon Johnson's administration, did nothing. Mayor Brandon Johnson is quoted as saying, "We do not need nor want an unconstitutional or illegal military occupation of our city," said Mayor Brandon Johnson. The order directs city agencies on how to respond to a possible immigration enforcement actions. Trump has already deployed about 2,000 troops in Washington, D.C., and has threatened to extend the order to Chicago, which he says is a mess. There's also reports of the administration planning to surge in number of federal immigration agents in the city. The White House described the order as a publicity stunt. And of course, this city is heavily divided. There are many people who are calling for Mayor Brandon Johnson to at least end or at least stop the violence. And while violence is at an all-time, well, I would call it at an all-time low, it is important to point out that Mayor Brandon Johnson has a city that is $1.1 billion in the hole. And right now, this weekend has done him no favors because, if anything, we all know how social media and mainstream media react to violence. And right now, over the weekend, Chicago unfortunately saw a surge in 20 plus shootings. And we know how the media system works. Once there's some bad news in the air, it's blood in the water, and the sharks tend to feed.
It's been a bloody weekend so far in Chicago with more than a dozen shootings in 48 hours.
WGN's Brona Tumulty joins us from 35th and Michigan with details. Brona?
Good evening, guys. Since Friday evening around 5 o'clock, there have been at least 21 shootings across the city, totaling about 36 victims, at least 5 of whom have died. A series of shootings in the last 48 hours have left 5 people dead in Chicago. This as the Trump administration possibly prepares to send thousands of National Guard members to our city. Today, bullet holes still visible in vehicles along the 1900 block of West 17th Street in Pilsen, some even being driven with smashed glass. It's after a shooting around 1:30 this morning, in which police say 3 men in their 40s were hit. Residents say the 2 youngest of those victims, believed to be aged 41 and 43, were attending an outdoor party when someone approached with a gun and shot them both in the legs.
Now, already right off the bat, I see what's going to happen. News like this is going to encourage Trump to follow through with his promise. Now, one of the main issues about Trump bringing the National Guard, or either that flexing his political power into Chicago, is to be a real threat to the Democrat Party. Now, no Democrat influencer is going to save the day, because here's the real issue at hand. Now, Mayor Brandon Johnson, he's mayor 6.6%. His popularity is in the toilet. This is going to be more of a reflection on how Governor J.B. Pritzker is going to be responding to President Donald Trump, as some have pointed to Pritzker to be one of the many few select candidates that the Democrats could potentially use for the 2028 presidential election cycle. And how Pritzker responds to Donald Trump, the National Guard being deployed, the FBI, ICE, or any other federal agencies within the city, which again is part of the great state of Illinois, how J.B. Pritzker responds to this is a question that many people are hoping to get a clear answer on. But in regards to a resistance, you can organize all the leaders you want. It all depends on the mood on the ground, and there is violence in Chicago. Yes, there are reports of it coming down, but again, a city that is in the hole financially, that is struggling to pay and keep itself afloat. This is where leaders are either tested for greatness or they break under the pressure. Now, I can't predict the future, but in regards to Mayor Brandon Johnson, it is in my opinion that he is going to be a one-term mayor. He is facing so many challenges that I have no idea how his administration is going to effectively be able to lead us out of this economic situation. And as we've seen before, the president, Donald Trump, is more than happy to at least give a, gut check blow to the city. But I want to tell everyone that it is either encouraging this or encouraging Donald Trump to come here, changing one faction to another, hoping the GOP will save the day. No, the political machine will still hum along. It's just going to be a little bit different. In fact, dealing with crime in Chicago and dealing with the political situation in Chicago is going to be vastly different than what you see in Washington, D.C. For those who know the history of Chicago, Chicago politics is cutthroat. Chicago politics is brutal. And if you are not prepared for the cost of playing the game in regards to being part of Chicago, you might as well pack up and go. At the same time, too, I would also encourage this president that if you are going to be trying to deal with the crime, go to City Hall. I'm going to repeat myself often on that because that's where the heart of the corruption's at. City Hall, City Hall, City Hall. I don't want to hear any talks about dealing with gang members on the street corner or any kind of nefarious outfits. Yes, they do exist. Yes, they are there. But if you're not going to deal with the main heart, that is Chicago politics and the corruption that is surrounding in it, that it's swimming in, why are you wasting everybody's time? I want to pull up the rest of this video here.
The older victim, whom police say was 46, passed away. Locals say he was homeless and harmless, well known in the neighborhood. Witnesses tell WGN he was shot in the head, execution style. Less than half an hour before all of this, 4 people were struck on the 2700 block of West Haddon Avenue in Humboldt Park. All were in their 20s and 30s and taken to various hospitals in good condition. And a separate incident earlier in the evening in Bronzeville saw 7 victims. It happened along the 3500 block of South State Street shortly after 11. Authorities believe it to be a drive-by shooting, with someone in a vehicle opening fire into a crowd. All of the victims were shot in their lower limbs, and all are expected to survive. So far, no arrests in any of those incidents. As we've been reporting, though, if you look at the latest CPD data available, crime overall in the city this year is down by about 13%. And if you look specifically at shooting incidents, it has dropped by almost 40% on last year's numbers.
But perception drives reality in this day and age where everything is hypercharged in the media and people will be consuming content. They're going to look at this and say, see, there's still violence in this city. See, we need to bring in the National Guard. Now, here's the problem with bringing in the National Guard or increase federal agencies within the streets of Chicago. Again, if anyone's hoping that the Chicago Police Department is going to pull over any of those federal agent vehicles, that's not going to happen. And for the record, I don't think the Chicago Police Department has any kind of power to have any really oversight or have the potential to even stop any of these federal agents from doing their job. At the same time, too, Mayor Brandon Johnson has, well, haven't really curried that many favors with the CPD because, again, this mayor is literally on the Titanic and Chicago is sinking because if we don't solve our economic crisis soon, and if we are incapable of actually dealing with trying to keep the city afloat so it doesn't fall apart, there will be an uptick in violence and crime. And already many people are losing hope in Chicago because neighborhoods are being gentrified. Politicians don't give a damn. Schools are being shut down. The price of goods and services is ever increasing. The average Chicagoan is wondering, is the juice worth the squeeze in this city? And I love this city. It's got its problems, but it's our home, and if we don't fix it, we're screwed. And this is why, once again, I want to tell anyone that is hoping that the politicians in City Hall or someone going to have your back as soon as Donald Trump sends in the National Guard or whoever, if that does potentially happen, you're not paying attention. These politicians only care about themselves. I don't see them really sticking their necks out for anyone. I just want to pull out this other video here as well because this is a response to people who want this to happen, or either that violence survivors weigh in on a potential National Guard deployment in Chicago.
Right now at 4:30, President Trump says the possible deployment of the National Guard to Chicago would help tackle crime in this city. But it comes as violent crime numbers are at a record low. Our Sabrina Franz is speaking today with survivors who've been directly impacted by gun violence. And Sabrina, it sounds like the response to the president's possible plan is mixed.
Community groups who have personal experience with gun violence fall on both sides of this debate. Some people that we spoke to today adamantly are not in support of the president's plan. Others do support it, but they have a caveat.
I survived gun violence.
A group of survivors met in Federal Plaza to say Chicago is not in a state of emergency.
I'm looking around right now. I don't see a war zone. I go in my neighborhood. I go to the same places where I got shot. It's not a war zone.
Samuel Mook Mormon tells us he was shot in the head in 2017 while standing on a porch in Chatham.
Shot it around my brain instead of through my skull.
It allows us. His life changed after that. He turned to community violence intervention and supports using social programs to bring down crime. We asked how he feels about the possibility of the National Guard being on Chicago's streets. Could that have at any point helped you or help prevent the gun violence that you saw growing up?
No, it actually have an adverse effect. Militarism it's just not the answer. It never has been and it never will be.
Not all organizers in Chicago share that view.
When you have
Now, here's the thing. I agree. All right. You got a hammer and everything looks like a nail. It's a recipe for disaster. And when you have the military doing the job of the police, then a dangerous line is being crossed. Now, before anyone says, well, fascism is coming to America, fascism is coming to America. Well, some will argue that it's already here. And it's been here under both Democrat and Republican presidential administrations. Yes, we are a constitutional republic that espouses democratic values, democracy. However, because we have politicians that can be bought. We're an oligarchy. And in an oligarchy, you're just a few steps away to having the dangerous F word come into existence. I would encourage everyone to understand this. When you have the military enacting policies that should belong to the police department, there's no going back to it, because then is the state or government viewing the people as the enemy? And if that's the case, do we need to watch what we say? Be careful what we do? Look, I'm a strong supporter of the First Amendment. Does that mean I have to be careful when I do my programming? That if I say something wrong against a politician or any political party or any law, do I have to worry about the political police, or dare I say it, the National Guard or whoever knocking at my door, kicking it down, and then I get arrested? I don't want that to happen. Now, is that a insane scenario? Oh, absolutely. It is an insane scenario, but is a very real reality, especially when you see it happen in Washington, D.C., and now hearing the same president talking about bringing it here in Chicago. Could this be one big nothing burger and he's just trying to posture? If this is nothing but posture, then Trump is inviting disaster for himself politically, but okay, whatever. It doesn't make a difference to me. Democrat, Republican politicians, at the end of the day, break away from it. Be post-duopoly. Don't trust the electoral system. Support third parties and independents. Support citizen ballot initiatives and support mutual aid. But if we're really going to be building a better future, we don't need the military to be on every street corner. We don't need the military to be doing the job of the police department, and we don't need the military to be enacting as the enforcer in case somebody says something or there's a protest or a rally that doesn't, appease or make the establishment happy. Again, I don't want this to happen, but at the same time too, and this should again tell everybody about the problems in Chicago, you have people that will be welcoming this with open arms because of the violence in Chicago. While the numbers are saying that it's at a record low, again, that's just numbers. It's not the first time polling and data have ever been messed up or made to look pretty, because people in Chicago are struggling day in, day out. The city is hyper segregated. The city is on its last legs because of our economic crisis, because of our political corruption, and so much more. Let's play the rest of this.
Family that has left this earth because of gun violence, I'm leaning toward it.
Helen Land is from the west side of the city. She lost her grandson to gun violence in 2018. Her daughter died nearly 2 years later.
My daughter passed away of an induced stress aneurysm.
God.
And when she dropped to the floor, her heart stopped beating. But it was a broken heart that took her life.
Now she helps other mothers who have lost their children with her organization, Where Do We Go From Here? She does have a caveat to the Guard coming to her city.
If they put it where it's needed, it wouldn't be Michigan Avenue.
If they were to come, they should not be just downtown.
No. The violence go downtown when the people go downtown, but the violence haven't left the community.
Now in D.C., where the National Guard has already been deployed, the Attorney General says federal agents have made thousands of arrests in about 1 or 2 weeks or so since they had been deployed there. Now, it's not exactly clear how that would look in Chicago and if the National Guard would be given any sort of directive to make arrests or assist federal agents here in making those arrests.
If that happens, we are walking into some dangerous territory. And then Trump is definitely playing the game of, does he want to be the imperial president, the second one? We've seen history repeat itself as soon as nations become, more imperial, centralized control, and to where there's nothing but absolute power, absolute authority. That's not going to sit well in Chicago. And like I mentioned before, Chicago's a hyper-segregated city. But if Trump's plan in bringing in federal agents and the National Guard into this city, if they start making mistakes, if innocent people start being detained and arrested, if you start seeing, again, the abuse of power, which already I'm saying if, which means there's a 50-50 chance it could happen. There's a very good chance that something very stupid could happen and could ignite this city to go in a full-blown riot. where people are going to be furious and upset. Heaven forbid we have a second Chicago fire, but this administration is clearly gunning for Chicago. And if they truly enact this and they start abusing their power, which we've seen before, we've seen so many times in which politicians abuse power and then the people are stuck under it. Never forget what happened in 2020. All the lockdowns, all the times a city or towns were shut down. I remember 2020 when the National Guard was here in Chicago and areas of Chicago were locked off. You couldn't go anywhere. Those were interesting times indeed. But here's a response from Governor J.B. Pritzker in regards to Trump bringing in the National Guard. Let's go and play this video.
Effort to stop President Trump from using the military to, quote, invade states. For his part, the president golfed while sounding off in a flurry of social media posts on several topics. CBS's Willie James Enman is at the White House, where officials there have plenty to say. Willie James.
Jerika, good evening to you. The White House is ramping up threats to send federal resources into several cities, including Chicago. But Governor J.B. Pritzker is accusing the president of creating mayhem.
The governor of Illinois says the Trump administration has not shared details on plans to send military forces into his state.
Any kind of troops on the streets of an American city don't belong unless there is an insurrection.
Or unless there's a COVID lockdown, right? Because I remember that happening. I remember the National Guard being in Chicago when the lockdowns were going down.
Unless there is truly an emergency, there is not.
The White House claims the National Guard is needed to stop violent crime in Chicago. CBS News has learned the Trump administration plans to increase immigration enforcement in the Windy City as soon as this week.
We hope that they don't send any troops along with ICE. And if they do, they'll be in court pretty quickly because that is illegal.
Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, who didn't disclose details of the operation, said Republican-led states are also being considered.
Absolutely. Every single city is evaluated for what we need to do there to make it safer.
The president...
Automatically now I'm thinking about that episode of South Park. Hey, by the way, to my fellow Chicagoans, lock up your dogs because, you know, you never know if ICE is going to be on the move.
Focused on another issue this weekend, how Americans cast their vote, promising to sign an executive order expanding voter ID requirements and ending mail-in voting with limited exceptions. Issues that have irritated the president in the past.
And we should go to paper ballots. We should go to one-day voting.
At least 9 states had more than 50% of votes cast by mail in the 2024 election. President Trump won 3 of those states.
The White House did not reveal details about the president's executive order, but the Constitution says the power to carry out federal elections belongs to the states.
All right, so we're going to pause here. We're going to pause here for a moment. Now, Hardlands Media, we're going to be on the ground. We're going to be hopefully in a very good, secure location to at least be filming or at least recording any kind of protest taking place. For those of you wondering, there's going to be a rally in March called Workers Over Billionaires. It's planned from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. tomorrow, or tomorrow, correction. I'm reading this right now in the evening, but it's going to be happening September 1st, Labor Day, at Haymarket Memorial at 151 North Displayin Street. And so far, this is the organization of many activist groups, union leaders, politicians, and so many more to stand up and resist against President Donald Trump and his threats to deploy the National Guard to Chicago. Chicago is going to be a hotbed of news and politics, and dare I say it, if Trump is going to really bring in the National Guard and federal agents, this city will be a front and center city in regards to how Trump is going to be handling other cities like New York or anywhere else in regards towards trying to crack down on crime, immigration. But it opens up a dangerous Pandora's box of, well, someday Trump will be gone, but what will his successors do? How will they enact their political power? Will they go after other rival cities in red or blue states? What will the next Democrat president do or the next Republican president do? Just how much further will they keep on pushing and pushing until they truly have the entire military, dare I say it, in a horrific doomsday scenario? What, patrolling all of our streets? We got to be careful what we say and do. I do hope that clearer minds will prevail and that no such action, no troop deployment doesn't happen at all. If that's the case, hey, Chicago dodges a bullet. But if it does happen, there's no going back. There's no return back to normalcy. When you have federal agents, the National Guard, doing the crackdowns, doing the job that normally should belong to our police department, our local authorities to handle, you have the threshold of crossing into absolute power, which is something that our politicians seem all too keen to do and vote for. Never forget, our emails are being observed, our phone calls are being recorded. Do we have privacy thanks to the NSA or the CIA or FBI listening in on us? I mean, we already know that big tech is selling our private information and private communications to third-party groups. What could go wrong? So Hard Lens Media is going to be on the ground. We're going to be covering any kind of potential protest taking place. And then, of course, there'll be a later evening edition of Hard Lens Media Night Writing, Monday for Labor Day. So tune in. I'm going to be safe, and I will give you guys some updates on X should anything go down. But this is happening in my hometown, and it would be wrong of me not to cover this kind of protest. And I did make a promise to all of you, my viewing audience, that sooner or later I was going to be covering at least one protest here in Chicago. And I think it's very appropriate that I'm covering this one. So Hard Lens Media will be on the ground. I give you a solemn oath that I will be safe. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in, and more than happy to give you guys at least a short morning show so that all of you can start your morning right and righteously angry every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Central on YouTube, Rumble, Kick, and X. As always, thank you again for everyone that's supporting us. If you want to help out Hard Lens Media, we appreciate all the solidarity and support that we can get. Again, if you want to help us out, please follow us on all of our social media. So, for example, in the description box below, we have our Linktree, Peachtree, and it's always appropriate if you guys can check it out. Here is our YouTube link, of course. If you go to our Linktree in the description box, our YouTube link. And, of course, going further, if you check out our X link, our Rumble link, our Kick link, Patreon, Substack, Discord, Instagram, and don't forget, we got a Facebook page as well. So any support, please help us build up our social media. Let's boost up those numbers. If you want to, please consider being a patron supporter. Patron supporters, you're keeping our costs down low and able to make sure that we stay afloat in this day and age of online censorship and suppression. So please consider being a patron supporter and support Chicago's #1 independent media network. And to anyone else that's watching, please consider supporting our GoFundMe. Any support and solidarity is greatly appreciated. Our goal is to at least get to 50,000. So check out our GoFundMe. We are now able to talk about this case and, more importantly, at least speak freely about it. So we do appreciate any solidarity and support we can get. Now, as a final note, again, I'm going to be as safe as humanly possible covering these protests taking place in Chicago. Maybe it'll be nothing. Maybe nothing will go down. But Hard Lens Media is going to be on the ground because that's what we do. We love this business. We love covering independent news, and also we love this city. So here's to building a better future, and tune in later tonight, 9 p.m. Central, Night Writing with Hard Lens Media, as you should all the time, every time. Until then, please take good care of yourselves and each other, and I'll see you guys on the flip side, and have a righteous and safe good morning.